Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. United Arab Emirates President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan has been officially greeted in the biggest welcoming ceremony of the Yoon administration. He and President Yoon are now holding a bilateral summit to tighten their friendship and cooperation. Just 19,669 babies were born in March in South Korea. It's not a record low figure for the month like the country has seen in the past few months, but still, it's a drop of over 7% compared to a year ago. Israeli military tanks were reportedly spotted in central Rafah on Tuesday for the first time since Israeli forces entered Gaza's southernmost city early this month. The U.S. remains committed to aiding Israel with military support. We begin with the summit between President Yoon and the President of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The two-day state visit began yesterday, and the official welcoming ceremony at the Yongsan presidential office ended just a few moments ago. We have our Kim Doyeon on the line with the latest. Doyeon.
Dami, that's right. The welcoming ceremony here at Yongsan presidential office for what is the first state visit to South Korea by a UAE president wrapped up just moments ago. The top office said that this state visit will have the biggest welcoming events hosted by President Yoon to match the scale of the UAE's welcoming ceremony for President Yoon in 2023. President Mohammed was received with blank artillery fire and members of the military, including those who have served at the AK unit in the UAE. There were also children to welcome him. The highlight of the event may have been the Black Eagles. The South Korean Air Force aerobic team flew across the sky a few times to showcase their skills with smoke trails in the colors of the South Korean and UAE flags. Now, the two leaders actually began engagements last night. They started with a stroll at the 15th century Gyeongdeokgung Palace in Seoul, where they watched a traditional court dance and had tea before moving to the presidential palace of Cheongwade for a dinner banquet.
Well, now the official summit between the two leaders should be underway. What can we expect from this?
That's right, Tommy. The official summit has begun. And going into the summit, the top office stressed the friendly ties between the two nations. Take a listen.
The UAE is the only country in the Middle East that South Korea has a special strategic partnership with. The two nations, through the Barakah nuclear energy plant and the AK unit, have established an important partnership in economy and defense.
Heading into this summit, the top office said the goal of this state visit is to enhance cooperation further with the UAE in the four areas the two nations set as being key when President Yoon went to Abu Dhabi for a state visit in January 2023. They're traditional and clean energy, peaceful nuclear energy, economy and investment, and defense technology. In addition, the two are expected to discuss geopolitical issues related to the two nations. Keep in mind, this state visit was supposed to happen last October, but Hamas' surprise attack on Israel resulted in it being postponed. More details to the two leaders' summit will come out soon, and we'll make sure to provide updates in a later newscast. Tommy?
All right, thanks, Doyeon, for that coverage. Now, moving on. Last night, residents of Gyeonggi-do province were startled after receiving an emergency disaster text message which read that objects suspected to be leaflets sent by North Korea have been found in the area. Now, over 100 balloons suspected to be filled with waste and attached with excrement have been found across the country. Our Yoon has the details.
The South Korean military has reported on Wednesday morning that around 150 balloons suspected to have been sent by North Korea have been found nationwide, including in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, and the Jeollado provinces. Military officials say the balloons have bags attached to them, suspected to be excrement and trash. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said that North Korea's actions clearly violate international law and pose a serious threat to the safety of South Korean citizens. It added that all responsibility lies with North Korea. The military also warned North Korea to immediately cease its inhumane and low-grade actions. Furthermore, the South Korean military says that it is closely cooperating with relevant agencies, including the Ministry of the Interior and Safety and the United Nations Command, to ensure the safety of the country's citizens. Some of the objects were first discovered on Tuesday night and were suspected to be North Korean propaganda leaflets. The Joint Chiefs of Staff asked local authorities to send nationwide emergency safety alert text messages to certain areas in Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. It urged the public not to touch any suspicious objects and to report them immediately when found. In collaboration with the police, the military is collecting the fallen balloons, and whether propaganda leaflets are attached is being verified. Such balloons sent by North Korea can cause damage in residential areas and also airports and highways. In 2016, there were incidents where vehicles and the roofs of homes were damaged. On Sunday, North Korea warned of retaliatory action against the distribution of anti-Pyongyang leaflets in border areas by North Korean defectors and conservative activists in South Korea. North Korean authorities stated through its state media that waste paper and trash will be sent to border areas and central parts of the country, and South Korea will see how much effort it takes to clean it up. 이은희, Arirang News.
And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has strongly denounced South Korea's military for staging air drills in a show of force against the regime's recent satellite launch attempt. The Korean Central News Agency reported Wednesday that Kim called the South's drill a very dangerous provocation and warned of a stern response during a visit to an institute involved in the North's missile program the day before. South Korea's Air Force staged air drills on Monday, hours after the North informed Japan of its attempt to launch a second military reconnaissance satellite. The launch failed on Monday night due to engine problems. Kim justified the satellite program as an essential right to self-defense. Also on Tuesday, North Korea slammed the trilateral summit between the leaders of South Korea, Japan, and China that took place the previous day. Experts say, though, Pyongyang's reaction was in fact aimed at China. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil explains.
The North Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs said if anyone tries to preach to us about denuclearization and tries to deny or violate our constitutional status, we will consider it the most severe violation of our sovereignty, in a statement on Monday. A ministry spokesperson released a statement about 3 hours after a joint announcement in Seoul by the South Korean, Japanese, and Chinese leaders. The three said in a statement that their countries reaffirmed that maintaining peace, stability, and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia serves a common interest and is a common responsibility. And that Seoul, Tokyo, and Beijing respectively reiterated positions on regional peace and stability, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and the abduction issue. A senior official of South Korea's unification ministry said it was rare for North Korea to publicly criticize a summit that China was involved in. The official said that even though Pyongyang's statement appears to be targeting the South, the fact that North Korea used the term anyone in a summit that China took part in was Pyongyang's way of indirectly expressing discontent with China. The North also said the nuclear threat from the U.S. triggered the regime to own nuclear weapons and that the idea of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula was basically dead.
The North is continuing to try to convince the international community that denuclearization is no longer realistic. What it wants is nuclear arms control and not getting rid of them.
However, experts added recognizing the North as a nuclear state could set a dangerous precedent as it would undermine global non-proliferation efforts. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Now, on the local front, South Korea's population decline remains a concern, with the number of deaths exceeding that of newborns in the month of March. Our An Sang-jin brings the latest figures.
The number of newborns in South Korea fell again in March compared to the year before. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that despite a slight rebound from February, the figure fell by 7.3% on-year, reaching nearly 19,700. The number of babies born declined on-year in all of the 17 administrative divisions in the country except for Sejong City, which saw an increase of 20 additional newborns. An official from Statistics Korea said that with relatively younger couples concentrated in Sejong City, despite the overall birth rate plunging, this area saw a slight increase. The number of births for the first quarter of 2024 declined by 6% compared to the same period last year. Meanwhile, the number of deaths rose by 7.6% to 31,000. The death rate went up in all regions across the country. The same official noted that the aging population takes up most of the deaths and added that with 2022 seeing a high death rate, the decline for this year is attributed to a base effect of a relatively low figure last year. The final figures are to be announced next year, August, once unreported data are counted for as well. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
There's another grim population forecast indicating all regions in the country will start to see the number of deaths exceed that of births in about 2 decades. Park Kwon-woo has this report.
The population in all of the 17 administrative divisions in South Korea is expected to see a natural decline, with the number of deaths exceeding that of births from the year 2045. Already 16 of the 17 divisions are seeing a natural decline. That's according to the population estimates 2022 to 2052 data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday. Currently, Sejong City was the only one out of the 17 administrative divisions that saw a natural increase in its population in 2022. But according to estimates, even Sejong will see a natural decrease in its population in around 20 years' time. It is estimated that the number of newborns there will stay at around 3,000 to 4,000 a year until 2052, but death figures will soar up to 5,000 a year. And all the other 16 administrative divisions will see natural decreases in their population as well. Also in 2052, all of the country's administrative divisions apart from Sejong City and Gyeonggi-do Province will see their total population fall compared to 2022, with Sejong and Gyeonggi-do seeing an inflow from other regions. The working population aged 15 to 64 will also decrease by 2052 in all administrative divisions except for Sejong, due to the continuous low birth rate. Ulsan City in the southeast of the country is expected to see its workforce shrink from 810,000 in 2022 to 410,000 in 2052, which is almost a 50% decrease. And every part of the country will be seeing increases in the proportion of people aged 65 and over. In 2052, that age group will account for nearly half of the total population in Jeollanam-do Province and Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. The age group is expected to account for over 45% of the total population in Gyeongsangnam-do and Gangwon-do provinces. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
The National Assembly on Tuesday voted not to approve an opposition-led bill for a special investigation into the death of a young Marine last year, one of the key contentious issues between rival parties. This followed a presidential veto of the bill last week. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-ho reports.
The National Assembly on Tuesday turned down the special probe into the death of a Marine in a rescue operation during last year's floods. In an anonymous vote of the total 294 votes cast, 179 voted for the bill and 111 voted against. 4 lawmakers abstained. For a bill already vetoed by the president to pass, it requires an approval from 2/3 or more of the lawmakers present, in addition to a majority attendance. This time, it would have taken 17 additional votes for the bill to pass. Ahead of the vote, there were expectations that more ruling People Power Party lawmakers might vote against their party. But the results suggest that there may have been some opposition members who did not back the bill. The bill, if passed, would have looked into whether the government interfered with the initial military investigation to allegedly cover up its fault in the incident. The PPP said that the bill is a, quote, political move aimed at targeting the president instead of investigating whether there really was professional negligence.
This special prosecution bill, which is pushed by the Democratic Party alone to produce results that suit its taste, is a tyranny of the majority party to undermine the spirit of separation of powers and paralyze fair judicial action for political gain.
The main opposition Democratic Party, on the other hand, said they must, quote, seek the truth, and said such is the main priority of the bill.
We can investigate the cover-up allegations and other matters during the following probe process, but I reiterate that the number one subject of the investigation is the Marine's death itself. So all the issues they have raised regarding this bill are either untrue or erroneous.
The DP vowed to push for the bill once again in the new assembly. Meanwhile, the parliament also passed another opposition-led bill, the revision to the Special Act to support victims of real estate fraud related to South Korea's unique rental system called jeonse. The revision calls for public institutions to provide priority relief for the victims prior to the collection of money through real estate sell-offs. The government and the ruling party have opposed the revision, citing risks to the government's financial viability, among other reasons. But the opposition today passed a bill with 170 approvals amid a walkout by the PPP. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Israeli tanks were seen moving into the heart of Rafah on Tuesday, with Gaza health authorities saying the shelling that followed killed at least 21 civilians. Now, the U.S. says the latest attack does not constitute a major offensive and will continue to assist Israel with military aid. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Just days after Israeli airstrikes in Rafah killed at least 45 civilians, Israeli tanks were seen entering the heart of Gaza's southernmost region. Gaza health authorities say the Israeli tanks began firing shells towards what has been designated as a civilian evacuation zone by Israel. Israel's military denied striking the camp, but Palestinian authorities say at least 21 civilians were killed, of which 12 were women. The latest incident took place in Al-Mawasi, an area that Israel has designated as an expanded humanitarian zone. Israel had urged Gazans to evacuate to the area when it began its incursion in early May. Despite reports of civilian deaths in Rafah, Washington says it does not believe Israel has launched a full-scale invasion in the region, adding the latest move by Israel does not constitute a major offensive.
We still don't believe that a major ground operation in Rafah is warranted. We still don't want to see the Israelis, as we say, smash into Rafah with large units over large pieces of territory. We still believe that, and we haven't seen that at this point. But we're going to be watching this, of course, very, very closely.
When asked whether the Israeli attacks between Sunday and Tuesday would not prompt a U.S. withdrawal of more military assistance to Israel, the spokesperson reaffirmed Washington's stance. U.S. President Joe Biden previously stressed that a full-scale Israeli offensive in Rafah would be crossing a red line and that some arms supplies to Israel would be halted if a major offensive is conducted in the city. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that there could be serious consequences if the West allows Ukraine to strike Russia using Western weapons. That was said to reporters in Tashkent on Tuesday during the last day of Putin's visit to Uzbekistan. Putin said it would lead to the West becoming deeply involved as Ukraine needs Western satellites and military help in order to attack with long-range weapons. He also warned that Western countries sending troops to Ukraine would trigger a global conflict and said they would be legitimate targets of Russia if sent. Wall Street had a mixed day of trading as AI chip firm Nvidia posted new highs while other shares tumbled with a rise in treasury yields. Investors are keeping a close eye on U.S. inflation data later this week as it could impact the Federal Reserve's next interest rate decision. Our Moon Hae-dun has the details.
The tech-heavy Nasdaq hit a new record high on Wall Street on the back of Nvidia gains on Tuesday. Artificial intelligence chipmaker Nvidia stocks jumped 7% to reach new heights, boosting the Nasdaq above 17,000 for the first time in history as it closed at 17,019.88. This follows the firm's posting of its quarterly earnings last week, where it reported a fivefold jump in revenue in the first quarter of the year for its data center sales, including AI chips used by companies such as Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI. Nvidia's share price also skyrocketed with the firm's forecast that second quarter profits are set to be above Wall Street expectations. The firm's shares have more than doubled in value so far this year, and further progress is expected with the release of its next new chip architecture model, Blackwell, later this year. Elsewhere on Wall Street, there were more disappointing results as the yield on the U.S. 10-year Treasury showed a slight rise. Higher yields can have a negative impact on stocks as they tighten financial conditions and push investors towards bonds as a safer asset. The S&P 500 index barely rose by 1.32 points, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended trading at 38,852.86, down over 0.5% from the previous trading day. The anticipation of interest rate cuts by the U.S. Central Bank has led Wall Street to hit new records recently, with the next Federal Open Market Committee meeting to come in just over 2 weeks. As investors await the announcement of U.S. inflation data for April later this week, eyes are on how it could affect the Fed's next move for the benchmark interest rate. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today with former US President Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial and closing arguments by lawyers on Tuesday. A New York prosecutor told jurors that Trump engaged in a conspiracy to corrupt the 2016 election and deliberated a cover-up. As the 5-week trial comes to an end, prosecutor Joshua Steinglass told jurors that Trump falsified business documents to cover up a hush money payment to a porn star, and that the case has broader political concerns, as Trump showed that having allies in the media can lead to control over what information reaches the voters. Trump's lawyers, in closing statements ahead of Steinglass, called Trump's fixer Michael Cohen the MVP of liars. They also gave 10 reasons why the jury should have reasonable doubt, a lack of evidence to show Trump knew the invoices were sent. After the closing arguments, jurors could begin deliberations as soon as Wednesday. Pope Francis has made a statement of apology following reports that he used highly derogatory language towards gay men. The Vatican said the Pope did not mean to offend anyone and that he is sorry to those who were hurt by the use of a word. A spokesperson from the Christian Catholic LGBTQ+ Association expressed disappointment on Tuesday after Pope Francis was widely reported to have used an Italian term to refer to homosexuals, as he told Italian bishops that he remains opposed to accepting gay people into the priesthood. The 87-year-old pontiff had received praise for his efforts toward the LGBT community when he said in 2013, "If a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge?" Last year, he also allowed priests to bless same-sex couples. Taiwan's parliament passed a reform package on Tuesday, pushed by the opposition party, that would increase oversight of the government. The contested reforms will allow lawmakers the power to ask individuals, private companies, and the military to disclose information deemed relevant by the members of parliament. The bill includes increased control of budgets, including defense spending, by the legislature. The reforms also criminalize contempt of parliament by government officials and require the president to give regular reports to parliament and answer to lawmakers, a first of such move for Taiwan. Outside the parliament building on Tuesday, thousands of protesters expressed their anger with chants about opposing Chinese political interference. And finally to England and the annual Cooper's Hill cheese rolling race held in Gloucestershire. The race involves participants chasing a 4-kilogram wheel of double Gloucester cheese down a steep hill, with many falling and tumbling down to the grass meadow below. 22-year-old Tom Kopke won the first men's downhill race, while 23-year-old American Abby Lamp won the women's race. The tradition dates back some 200 years, and the winner takes home the cheese. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We had a nice and bright start to the day, but afternoon highs are rising rapidly, going up much warmer than yesterday across much of Korea. And especially those in the southern regions and on the east coast, you notice a bigger jump in highs, topping out at 30 degrees Celsius in Gangneung and over in Daegu. Plenty of sunshine continues nationwide, boosting UV rays to very high levels in the afternoon. Don't forget your sun gear and remember to have sunglasses on. If your eyes are not protected in the sun, they're exposed to multiple types of UV rays. Checking on today's highs now, Chuncheon and Daejeon getting up to 28 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Much more comfortable in Busan and Jeju, topping out at 25 degrees. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide, but the ozone level will reach a high level during the day. Then we are expecting more clouds than sunshine for the rest of the week, with a slim chance of rain on Jeju on Friday and Gangwon-do this weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.